for letting me join today. You guys, sorry I can't be there. We're having a nice snowy day here in Philadelphia. So we're going to spend about the next 25, 30 minutes talking about messaging. And as Ann said, I've done some work in terms of social media branding and things like that, really focused on attracting the women underserved population. So I know this view is a little bit broader. So in the next 30 minutes, my goal here is really to kind of do two things. Number one, to have you start to wrap your head around how to create campaigns and how to align messaging in order to attract that underserved population that you're going after. And I do know it's a little bit of an array in terms of Hispanics, African Americans, women, and then the like. So that's goal number one, just to start your thinking on this whole process, share some of the best practices, some of the tactics. And then number two, to point you to some really great examples of things that are going on out there, not necessarily with community colleges, but with some of the professional organizations around IT and technology that are aligned to some of the populations that you're going after, Hispanics, African Americans. So those two things. So, thinking about the messaging and then pointing you to some best practices, some examples, and some influencers. The top 5 challenges, I went through and I read all of your applications and your documentation in terms of what you wanted to get out of the session. And these are the things that jumped out at me, which were pretty common amongst the applications in terms of what the roadblocks and the challenges that you guys are facing, attracting your underserved population into your technical programs. And I actually did sort of rank these right here from 1 to 5. There were other ones mentioned, but these are the top 5, and you can read those here. One common thread I thought, which was interesting, this whole idea of cultural stereotypes and then career stereotypes, and then lack of role models. Those 3 things kind of all wrapped together as one package, if you will. So by cultural stereotypes, a lot of folks mentioned, I think it's especially with our Latino population, sort of the mindset that when you graduate from high school, you go right into a job, when you start earning money to support the family. So there's some family expectations, which might be roadblocks. Other things being in terms of not really access maybe to role models that are readily available, within your neighborhood, within your community, within your family, things like that. So I thought that was very interesting, which we'll address. And then certainly the financial issue is underlying all of this, and we all know that. And then number 5, the lack right now of really targeted collateral materials that do appeal to that underserved population. So there's some rework maybe required there. So looking at those challenges and then looking at what the goal is right here, it really is, to move that underserved population to a force of action so they do actually enroll in the program once they enroll, so recruit and then retain that student so they complete the program and then emerge out and graduate and then enter the profession. So as we step back and we look at our messaging strategy, it really has to do 3 separate things in this order. So number 1, you have to first, educate the individuals, inform the individuals, create an awareness. And you guys know better than me in terms of where you are on that spectrum in terms of creating a generalized awareness of your programs and the availability of your programs. So the awareness is not just the curriculum and then the financial aid options to get you through that curriculum, but it's also drawing that line, connecting the curriculum to career options and career opportunities, right? Because we know this is an investment in time and money for these students to go through this. So it's making that connection for them. And then again, career opportunities, probably in a lot of cases being localized. So that's, number 1, that messaging has to really inform and create that sense of awareness. And then number 2, the messaging really has to try to sort of turn the normal thinking on its head and challenge the current thinking. easier said than done, right? So by challenge, we're and then inspire, we're trying to get to the emotional level of the individual that you're appealing to. So how do we challenge stereotypes when they're so ingrained in some of these populations? The best way you do that really is with role models. So you have to allow the individual, your target market, whether that's a woman or a male or African American, Hispanic, to really see themselves as a student, first of all, going through the program, and then to see themselves actually working in that field. So, and we're going to get into sort of some of the ideas and how we do that. So that's number 2. And then finally, number 3, really to move the potential student to action. So you want to inspire them. And the next step to learn more could be any number of things in terms of how you might be designing your campaign. It could be an info session, a face-to-face info session with professors, maybe with business leaders who are trying to build their workforce. It could be something as simple as a web page or something on social media where you're trying to motivate the potential student to actually fill in a form or provide their email address for more information. It could even be something even simpler as a click, right? Maybe a post on a Facebook page and then a click through to the more detailed information about that particular program. So that inspiration step and that next step is something that'll be defined by whatever campaign that you're running. So when we talk about messaging and the best practices, this is something that the work that I've done with IBM, with our HR community, IBM as well as technology firms, large and small, really put a concerted and very thoughtful effort into attracting our diverse, multicultural population to the workforce. So there are very specific campaigns that go on to do that, and obviously very specific, outreach. So number 1, while you're appealing to a certain culture and potentially a gender, you want to avoid a stereotypical view, which might be offensive. So for gender stereotypes. So it probably may not be effective to show a group of women maybe programming on, pink computers, things like that. So that's what we mean, something very, very egregious. But I think, from what I understand, where the folks in your room are, I think you guys probably already understand that. But sometimes that needs to be said. So avoiding that stereotypical view. Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2 is really to get pretty detailed and then describe what that opportunity is, how it's real to you in the local market. So if you live in, Nashville, Tennessee, there are, whatever, every year there's 100 brand new jobs in Cisco networking, whatever it might be, and really start to maybe put some data in there and some numerics to show that there is potential. And then also, the earnings potential as well. I think maybe in some cases you might be trying to move folks maybe from an hourly wage situation into, obviously into a salaried with benefits type of a working arrangement. So really getting in there and talking about, the earnings potential and the benefits might help that person say, wow, this is an investment in my, this is an investment. I do see something out on the back end where it's going to pay for that initial investment. I think the key thing here is really getting very local with your messaging. And doing that, definitely a best practice would be partnering with local organizations and businesses who may have already figured this out, so you can tap into some of their efforts. And then the last 2 are really the imagery and the role models. So talking about the messaging, and then we're talking about certainly your imagery that you're using. Again, it's trying to get that potential student to visualize themselves in the program and then working in the profession. So featuring students who are already in the program, certainly faculty members, maybe local professionals, and then in some cases, maybe tech leaders. in some cases, if you feel that really appeals to your population. And then using that same kind of imagery. So when you think through these best practices, I mean, the underlying piece in this is, first of all, think about who you're trying to reach, who that individual is. So that target person. And that's from a gender, that's sort of from an age perspective, and then certainly from a cultural, kind of a background as well. And then tailor those messages that way. Now, if you have different target markets, that could be different campaigns to appeal to that audience. So again, this is pretty high level. So again, it's just trying to get your thinking in the right direction. So moving into there, I wanted just to spend a little bit of time on the value of leveraging some of the influencers and seeing what they do in their campaigns, and using them as examples, and then also not only using them as examples and sort of best practices where maybe you can sort of tailor some of what you're doing after what they've done, but also using some of these organizations, and this is just 6. There's numerous ones out there. These are the 6 that really jump to my mind, based on the work that I've done with IBM. But also using them as a source of content, of inspirational content for the population that you might be trying to reach. So that's the idea right here. Because again, I think with limited budgets and personnel, to the extent where you don't have to create something brand new with a marketing message to your target audience where you can tap into something, say for example, women in tech, like a campaign that the women in technology are already utilizing. You can, say on Facebook, take that message and then just add your blurb to it. So maybe there's something in there that 99% of the companies out there are trying to increase their ranks of women engineers in the U.S. And then you could draw a connection to that and saying we have programs in these areas, we can get you there and let you take advantage of that opportunity. So here's some examples running across women and then African Americans and then Latinas. These are some recent posts that I copied, that I cut off of actually it was probably Facebook, that I cut off of Facebook. And the first one, the women, the witty one, a lot of the women's organizations, rightly so, are using the Hidden Figures popularity of that film to run campaigns around that, which is wonderful. That, and as well as on the right-hand side, the Black STEM Like Me is a brand new campaign, and they kicked that campaign off with screenings and dialogues and everything all about the movie Hidden Figures. So that's another creative source, potentially, of messaging and tapping into this whole idea of pop culture and media where you can. And then right here, if we're looking at the Techno Cheetahs, that was something, see we have 2 of these that were viewing the Hidden Figures movie. I didn't copy a lot of things here, but afterwards and when you guys get back to your offices, I would really encourage you guys to go out to that URL, the Black STEM Like Me campaign. That is a very targeted campaign that the National Society of Black Engineers, of which IBM has had a number of Engineers of the Year over the years with that organization. It's an organization that's been around for a pretty long time. But they're running that black campaign, that campaign right now, and it's called Be One of 10,000, I think, or 1 of 100,000. I can't remember. But their goal is by the mid-20s, I think 2024, something like that, to graduate 10,000 brand new black engineers. Now, again, that's engineers, not IT right here. But if you go out to that website, there's resources out there, and it takes you through that campaign and what they're doing. And one point on that, one very creative thing that they're doing is they are doing very overt and proactive outreach to the population and asking engineers who are working or who may be in college to share their stories. And they're running a contest. So I think it might be a monthly contest. So if you tweet something or if you post something or if you add a link to, if you happen to run a blog, they're taking that and they're displaying that on their website as part of their campaign, which is great because they're sourcing content, from their community as opposed to trying to create it all organically inside. And here's a couple of other screen caps, which are a little bit older. And these, I put these up there. This is when we were doing the work for the women in technology piece, and we were talking about the imagery in terms of some of the visuals right here. That was one. And then El Centro is there. It's one of my most favorite ads, or two of my most favorite, which I thought used humor and then also used that sort of challenged that current thinking of how can I possibly get from where I am today in my hourly wage job to really a professional career. And it's that hashtag for 7 jobs, which was a great campaign, and you can obviously read the progression there. Very creative. And then the Untangle Your Career options as well. Used humor, and then, the imagery there clearly was, aligned to that audience. And then the one in the middle is just an example of a local partnership. So weaving in those local businesses who are doing the hiring once the students graduate is something else very powerful. So there's a lot of different sources for the content. So it's just, defining your target audience and then what your main challenges are and trying to tailor your messaging towards that. So that's all I had really to, start the thinking on this. So I will be quiet, and then Ann, if anyone wants to ask a quick question or however else I can help, let me know.
What's the expectation as far as frequency that people should be reached out to or communicated with?
All of these recruiting campaigns and all that would, of course, be multi-channel. By multi-channel, we mean obviously you have your website, so that would be your base, and then utilizing your social properties, of which I think, from what I can see, most colleges are really heavy on the Facebook, which is good, and maybe a little lighter on the Twitter, although that may change. So those are your social channels, and then also in some cases utilizing if you have email lists and things like that. This is another whole topic talking about what is the most effective channel to reach your audience, and again, that depends, right? And then of course you have your print campaigns and all that. So I think in terms of frequency of posting, say if we're just looking at like a Facebook campaign, certainly not multiple posts a day. See, and again, it depends. I think there's a couple of things that it depends on. It depends on how many people you have to create content and manage that property. So I think with Facebook, certainly a post a day to keep that message fresh. Twitter, I'm not, the jury's out on Twitter. I think people are starting to back off of that a little bit, potentially. But Twitter, Twitter, to me, Twitter is utilized more as a drive to sort of a mechanism. So if you're running, you would want to post a link to it. You wouldn't just post a message there saying, hey, we're having an open house tomorrow night on, careers and networking, whatever it might be. You would want to make sure that real content lived, was set up someplace else, whether it's on the website or it's on your Facebook page.
Laura, is it the same thing? Would you have the same campaign to reach women under 25 and women over 25, the same campaign to reach African American women in the same age ranges, or would you be adjusting those campaigns?
Yeah, I think you would probably be adjusting those campaigns a little bit based on maybe on some of the cultural predispositions. I think in terms of channels, I wouldn't get hung up in the channels, is one group more active on social media or the other. I think, and there's all kinds of research and statistics out there. But the absolute standard now for most organizations now is, that website. So you have to make sure that whatever you're saying on the social properties is backed up on the website and that you have a drive-to web page, information page, a form. But folks are really investing in Facebook and putting their money and putting their resources more into Facebook. And then once something is posted on Facebook, maybe doing a couple of Twitter posts on that. So that's really where it is. If some of the colleges are a little further along, maybe in printed collateral and marketing materials that may have been developed or are in development for the target audience for some of the programs, you can actually take that content and certainly digitize it. And then even, if you say, for example, you had a trifold marketing brochure, it's very possible that what is said in that marketing brochure could potentially result in maybe a half a dozen or more Facebook posts. So it's reusing the content that you have is another best practice.
Do we only post the professional, polished, clean items, or do we post the iPhone photos of the real things happening in our community?
You post the iPhone photos too. Absolutely. You do. So say, for example, there's a classroom scene, right? There's a class, there's a lot of women in it, or your underserved population in it. It's wonderful to have something that's very grassroots, if you will, and have a picture of the students working on whatever they're working on, and then posting that on Twitter or on Facebook, just with a little caption, that says, having a great time today, doing X, Y, Z. And then, but the good thing is because that might catch someone's attention, and they might say, wow, that kind of looks like something I may want to do. So you want to make sure you have a drive to URL. So learn more about, our programs, and then you have a URL where the person can click to it and then go to a course description or something like that. But in the social media world, everything, it is real time, if you will. It is casual. If you look at what goes on surrounding the big sporting events, right? The Super Bowl. All the the crazy photos that the players posted and the fans posted and all that. News media actually pick up a lot of that grassroots kind of content, so that is a great source of content.
Thank you.
That's great. Have a great day, folks. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.